Chinese President Xi Jinping is rolling out the red carpet in Tianjin for a gathering of autocratic and populist leaders. Rivals and allies alike are welcome. They're taking part in a security summit designed to present China as the leader of an alternative international order to Western-led institutions.
It's Narendra Modi's first visit to China in 7 years. The Indian Prime Minister is attending the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, a loose grouping of countries that seeks to counter the influence of Western-led groups. Although India and China are traditionally rivals, US President Donald Trump's decision to impose hefty 50% tariffs on imports from India over its purchase of Russian oil has driven a wedge between Delhi and Washington.
I am expecting that India and China will actually start working closely as far as economic cooperation is concerned. Perhaps we can see more Chinese investments coming into India in certain sectors, which open the field for more jobs, more capital flows, and perhaps more exports from India.
The summit also offers a valuable international profile boost for Russian President Vladimir Putin, who continues to press his invasion of Ukraine in the face of international pressure to stop, and to praise the China-Russia alliance as a stabilizing force for the world in Chinese state media ahead of the summit. Some 26 leaders are expected at the gathering, including North Korea's Kim Jong-un, Myanmar's Min Aung Hlaing, and Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. Putin and other leaders will attend a massive military parade on September the 3rd in Beijing to mark the end of World War II. Another opportunity for Xi to present China as a unifying force at a time when Western alliances are under pressure from Trump's tariff policies.
And joining me now in the studio is our China analyst, Clifford Coonan. Clifford, Modi's first trip to China in several years. Is this something of an India-China reset, or are we reading too much into that?
I think reset is probably a bit too strong because these are very, very strong rivals. I mean, China's India's largest neighbour. They have this 3,440-kilometre long border, which is incredibly long, through the Himalayas, and it's hotly disputed, it's ill-defined, and these border disputes are very much at the centre of their relations. However, it is definitely closer relations between these two countries, largely driven by global events beyond India and China.
Yeah, I was going to ask you why now?
Well, certainly Trump's tariffs have been a big factor, 50% tariffs on Indian goods, which is massive. And that was a huge humiliation for India because this is a traditional ally. They went into negotiations and they came out with higher tariffs than they went into them with, which is embarrassing for them. And they feel slighted, and they've always tried to play both sides. Part of me thinks that Trump is trying to show India what it can do and to try and make India take sides. But in the meantime, China's always felt that the West uses India as a way of to try and counterbalance its rise and its growing power. So there's a lot going on there, and I think we're going to see that this is going to unfold in a very interesting way over the next few years.
Well, in saying that, what does China want out of this closer relationship?
I think China first of all wants to kind of present this unified front with the other BRICS nations, which is a big factor. They like the idea of India looking to them. Economically, they can do a lot there. They can sell a lot of Chinese goods there. They can maybe even get territorial gains. There's all kinds of advantages they could gain if India really does start getting close to China. On the other hand, these are deep divisions, so it's going to take a lot to overcome them. But for China, it means that it's growing prestige. It shows that it's got influence in the region, and that it's possibly going to be able to kind of dominate the region in a way.
What about the global impact of these two countries getting closer, or in fact the strengthening country of all of these countries?
Well, looking at these countries who are gathered at this Shanghai conference, it's very interesting. There's a lot of populists there. There's a lot of authoritarian governments, autocrats, a lot of people who are, the only thing they have in common is basically a sort of anti-American, anti-Western leaning. India, in some ways, because it was for so long an ally of the West, is kind of a little bit of an outlier. But as we've said, it's being pushed that way a little bit. So it could see a kind of a refocusing, a resetting. Personally, I think there's too many. They have too many differences, and they're all these strongmen politicians. Eventually, their egos are going to stop them ever getting too close, and it's all men, as we discussed. But ultimately, it is a repositioning, certainly, and something that's going to put pressure, particularly on places like Europe. Europe is going to have to rethink how it deals with organisations like the Shanghai Organization, and then, of course, it is rethinking its relationship with the US.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very interesting conference indeed. Clifford Coonan, thanks very much.